Let's mod some Chapter 3 features into Raft. Hi friends, and welcome back to Raft. Today, instead of our normal weekly mod showcase, we're gonna use mods in a slightly different way. So, currently, most Raft players are waiting for the advent of Chapter 3, which personally I still think is a little ways off, but the devs have been kind enough to offer us some teasers of what we can expect to see once the chapter update drops. And using a few of our favorite mods, we can actually emulate what comes out of those teasers and experiment with those features in our current games. So I'm going to show off some of those mods that you can use to experiment with Chapter 3 features, and show you how they're used, and I'll just tell you in general what I think of them and what I think it's going to look like in Chapter 3. So first up, we've got one of my favorite mods of all time, the Building Utilities mod, which basically does exactly that. It's utility in building. But a while ago, the devs released this teaser of horizontal pillars. And that may not seem like a very big deal, but if you're into the raft building scene, you know that probably the only way for you to reliably get, like, bigger ceilings is by doing this little glitch where you can build, like, triangular planks and then destroy the pillar, and for some reason it floats, which don't ask me, it doesn't make sense. But the horizontal pillars might allow us to build bigger structures without having to have pillars every 2 squares. And we can see what this looks like using the Building Utilities mod if we just kind of build up on either side, and then with this we can actually rotate things horizontally, which is actually really cool, and then build kind of the same frame. So you can see I did this one with the fancy wood pillars and this one with the normal wood pillars. Neither one looks particularly very clean, and obviously the full game is going to hopefully clean this up a little bit. At least that's the quality I would expect from the devs. But still, I think it'll be really cool to see how this will change your building world. But if you're that kind of person who really wants to make sure that, like, your raft is gonna work, or if there's a design you want to try, this might be a good option for you to experiment ahead of time without having to wait for the full update. If you're really into that building world and you want to make sure that you have the perfect design ready for when that chapter update drops. The next teaser we're going to talk about is this modified anchor. And if you ask me, if we look at this like little circuit box looking thing on the side, I would be willing to bet that this is going to be some kind of electric anchor that we can hook up to, like, our engine controls or something like that, so that when we toggle our engines, we can also toggle our anchors at the same time, and maybe even the sails, who knows. But we can already achieve this by using a combination of multi-bind and the Better Controls mods, by basically saying, yeah, I want to bind my toggle anchor to, like, P, for instance. You can see I pressed B, and now here it comes all the way up from the abyss. And while this might not be technically electric and you don't really need the engine controls to do it, it's still a nice, like, automated quality of life change that if you want a little bit of time to get used to or just experiment with, this could be a great option for you, in all honesty. Personally, I really love the multi-bind mod in combination with the Better Controls mod, specifically because then you can bind all of those, like, toggle engines, toggle, like, anchor, toggle sail all to the same key, so it does it all at once. That might be a bit too heavy-handed for some people, but just know that that is an option if you want to try and experiment with what that feels like before Chapter 3. Now, it may not be immediately obvious why an anchor is up next when they're not really changing anything about the anchor itself, but if you are a frequent user of engines, then you'll probably know about this, that one engine powers exactly 100 foundations. And just last week, the devs uploaded this teaser of a foundation counter, so that basically you can do the math and divide that by 100 to see exactly how many engines you'll need to power your current raft design. And frankly, there's already a few ways to do this with mods. There you have the option of the statistics mod, so if you go into settings with the extra settings API, we can just go ahead and scroll down and look at our raft weight. So if I select this and then exit out again, you can see that I have 754 things, and it needs 6 engines. You could also do this with the foundation count mod. It does exactly that, where if I do foundations in the console, it tells me the exact same thing, that I will need to do that. And then you just simply divide it by 100. You see, I need 6 engines. Woo! Easy math. So that's the entirety of what that thing does. I think it'll be nice to have like as a little item, like maybe in your little control center area. But still, there are other ways to do it. Also, if you build a square raft, like multiplication is kind of a thing. But you know, sometimes math sucks, and I suck at math, so I understand the need for it too. One of the features I'm most excited for coming with Chapter 3 is this idea of compacting things into scrap cubes, basically. And while we can't exactly emulate that right now in-game, what we can do is use the metal to scrap mod or the scrap to metal mod, it's the exact same thing, just vice versa, where we can craft metal ore or scrap into metal things, basically. So we can make these exchangeable. And to me, this focuses much in the same way as kind of a condenser, or the actual item in that teaser is called a recycler, where basically we're just taking one scrap of metal and turning it into a metal bar, which frankly seems like a nifty feature that should already be in the game, but maybe that's just me being a little biased. So this is kind of a cool way around that. Now the recycler we know will also accept things like planks and plastic, and sadly this metal and scrap mod doesn't have that feature, but again, we gotta leave some things to experiment with Chapter 3. One of the other major features coming in the teasers that we know about was this improved larger battery that supposedly holds more than a mayonnaise tub. And if you ask me, I never paid attention to the fact that this was labeled mayonnaise, and that kind of concerns me how many tubs of mayonnaise there are in the world, but that's a side note. Anyways, you can kind of simulate this with the almost no power mod, which is a little bit sketchy in the fact that it makes battery durability infinite, which is not what a larger battery would do per se. But if you want to experiment with having to deal with less power, this also still works in that realm. It's just a little more cheaty in my opinion, but still it's the general gist of the idea of the item that they're adding, so we'll include it here. And finally, one of the things I'm most excited for in Chapter 3 is the inclusion of trading posts, which we actually got news of in the official devlog 47, where they announced all of the Chapter 3 things. And that's why we need the scrap cubes that we talked about earlier, the metal to scrap mod. So basically, theoretically, these will be locations you can go to trade in these scrap cubes for other resources. But what if I told you that there was a mod that did pretty much the same thing? So let's hop into a survival world and check out what that mod is like. So here we are back in our survival world on our big ol' yacht, and if we look really closely at the receiver now, there are some small red dots on our receiver. These are trading posts, and that one's about 300 meters away, so let's head over there and see what they look like. Okay, so you can see that we're here at where the icon was. It's gone now, but you can see at the top of our screen we've got this little 10 quest bar. So if we click on that, we can see all of the quests that we are trading for. So up top is the items that the quest wants, and the items we will get in return. Obviously, because I have other mods enabled at this time, it's going to ask you for some modded items too, which I actually think is really cool. And then from here we can either accept or move on to the next things. So frankly, this quest would be a lot more reasonable to complete, and we can just keep scrolling through these. And frankly, there's a few other ways to get quests, notably from decoration packages, so that gives them a use long term once you've got things other than your standard decoration items, because, there's only so many of them in-game. But it does allow us to trade things. Sadly, there is not a physical location for it, but it fills the same niche as the trading features we can expect to see in Chapter 3. So, I think that does it for our session of modding in Chapter 3 features into Raft. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if there's any other features that I missed or that you wanted me to cover. But until then, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a great day.